President William Ruto's expenditure on foreign trips. The Deputy President claimed the media was hell-bent on undermining the President's achievement and damaging his reputation. Here is that report.
It is these trips that have stirred up the new war front with the media after one of the dailies claimed that the president had outspent his predecessor 3 times over on travel, hospitality and vehicles despite the hard economic times. According to the report by the Controller of Budget, the Office of the President had spent 2.4 billion shillings for travel, fuel and servicing of vehicles from October last year to March this year, compared to 800 million shillings spent during the same period the previous year in Uhuru's regime.
And within 9 months of your leadership, Your Excellency, what appeared impossible has been done. Your Excellency, this is evident fruition of your hands-on style of management. I was reading sometime, I think a month ago, some newspaper was complaining about your style of management, that you are hands-on. What I couldn't understand is, had they done some research, they would come to the conclusion that all successful institutions, all successful organizations are those who are led by the CEOs who practice a hands-on style of management. Your Excellency, this was stuck for many years. And through prudent commitment and focused leadership, you gave deadlines, you encouraged everybody to work, and that is why we have this agreement today.
The Deputy President claims that the media was simply looking for headlines to sell their newspapers.
Complain that you are traveling too much. At the same time, they complain that I'm not traveling. I don't know which is which. Because I saw them complaining that since you leave me around to mind the house, they say that you have stopped me from traveling and assigned me what they call useless duties. On the same page, they are complaining that you have traveled too much. I don't know what is it that they want to do. Your Excellency, we want to encourage you that you must continue with bilateral and multilateral diplomacy for the benefit of this country as you continue to locally harness resources to restore the economy of this country to where President Mwai Kibaki left.
Meanwhile, the CS Trade, Moses Kuria, was busy tearing into the same media house and warning government agencies against advertising with the said media.
Na nimaliza nyinyi watu wa media kusema, Nation Media, muamue kama nyinyi ni gazeti, ama broadcasting house, ama media house, ama ni chama cha upinzani. Na mimi nimesema kutoka leo hata sio kesho, idara yote ya serikali nitaona imeweka advertisement kwa Nation Media. Ujihesabu kwa nyumbani.
Kuria's remarks have seen media sector associations condemning his attack, terming them disgraceful. The Media Owners Association, Media Council of Kenya, Kenya Editors Guild, and the Kenya Union of Journalists terming the minister's remarks as a threat to the freedom of the press. Now, this is not the first time the media is finding itself on the crossline of the executive and opposition. The former President Uhuru Kenyatta claimed that he never used to read newspapers, saying they were only fit for wrapping meat.
Mniambie ya kwamba yale ambaye tunasoma ni ya ukweli au ni ya uongo? Ni ya uongo. Nataka kuona kwa mikono wale wanasema ya kwamba hiyo ni mambo ya upuzi. Yale ambaye tunasoma ni ya upuzi. Kwa hivyo vile nilisema ya kwamba gazeti ni ya kufunga nyama ni sawa. Tuendelee namna hiyo. Basi sawa, tuendelee.
Interesting times ahead indeed, following that, intense report right there that was filed On the government versus the media, the latest attacks, verbal attacks, press releases that we keep on seeing, social media attacks against the media by some key government officials. Is this the path we want to take as a country? That is the million-dollar question. Away from that, President William Ruto has said that European Commission Kenya Economic Partnership Agreement that was signed on Monday will put money in the pockets of Kenyan traders. According to the president, the partnership will make Kenya the hub of European products in East Africa, in addition to stimulating the country's manufacturing and export of finished products. Victor Enzobeli with the details.
Kenya and the European Union have reached an agreement on an economic partnership, a development poised to boost trade and investment relations between the European Union and Kenya. The discussions, which were held in the presence of President William Ruto, were concluded by European Commission Executive Vice President and the European Union Trade Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis and Cabinet Secretary of Kenya's Ministry of Investments, Trade and Industry, Moses Kuria. According to a joint communique issued by Cabinet Secretary Kuria and his European Union counterpart, the Kenya-European Union Agreement will continue to be accessible to East African Community member states.
In a wider sense, this agreement provides a solid foundation for cooperation across a range of important areas. This matters because the EU and Kenya are aligned on many global issues, ranging from a support of rules-based multilateral order to climate action. This agreement contains strong ambitions on trade and sustainable development. Indeed, this is the most ambitious trade deal the EU has concluded with any African country when it comes to climate protection, labor rights, and gender equality. This will benefit both sides, our people, our environment, and our climate. And let's be clear, it will also benefit our economies. Countries and regions that make moves towards sustainable.
On the other hand, Cabinet Secretary Kuria says the agreement, which provides duty-free, quota-free market access for exports and certainty in the trading regime, will enable the private sector to trade and invest with confidence and expand employment opportunities for Kenyan youth and support livelihoods.
Or because we have got the rights by birth to being born in Africa and Europe. We are not signing this because of the economic status of Kenya and the European Union. We are signing this because these are issues that we agree on. These are issues that there is absolutely no dispute, no variance between Kenya and the European Union. And I want to encourage yet again, as I did during the business forum by the European Union, let us encourage countries to get into trade agreements or trade structures because it makes sense for their people, for uplifting their people out of poverty. Let us not bask in the glory of I belong to this and that economic category or I belong to this and that continent. Let us do this because it makes sense for us. This agreement today hopefully will open doors for our other partners within the East African community, our 7 countries there, our 300 million people there, indeed graduating into the 28 member states of our tripartite free trade agreement, which we hope to ratify and operational very soon.
President William Ruto has said that European Union Kenya Economic Partnership Agreement will put money in the pockets of Kenyan traders. According to Ruto, the partnership will make Kenya the hub for European products in East Africa, in addition to stimulating the country's manufacturing and export of finished products.
Interests in trade, investment, peace, and security in our region, and the transition to green energy and the digital economy. It signals our long-term commitment to ensure that farmers, including those in the flour, coffee, tea, fish, peas, and the edible fruits and nuts sector, are assured of a predictable market. Although the EU is already Kenya's largest export destination, accounting for 21% of Kenya's total exports, the agreement we have negotiated provides significant opportunities to enhance this performance. It assures a stable market for industrialists, for our farmers, and also industrialists in the European Union that deal in machinery and mechanical appliances, pharmaceutical products, chemicals, electrical machinery, beverages, and other processed products of an assured market in our country.
Reporting for EBN TV, my name is Victor Enzobeli.
Well, after that report that was filed by Victor Enzobeli, let's now shift our focus and look at the newspapers. What is making headlines across the local dailies? I do have three of them: the Daily Nation, the Standard, and the Star. Now, the Daily Nation this morning, moment of truth. Voting likely to drag on late into the night or extend to tomorrow's sittings. That is with regards to the Finance Bill 2023. Now, Wetangula, the Speaker of the National Assembly, and Kingi, Speaker of the Senate, have been accused, and the minority leadership in Parliament has termed the two speakers unpopular for the decisions they have made, which they say outrightly favor the Kenya Kwanza administration, and argue that the duo cannot be compared to the predecessors. Now, the number of Kenya Kwanza MPs who voted to pass the finance bill during the second reading last week was 176. And remember, there are about 349 members of parliament at the National Assembly. So we do expect today the 349, all of them, if possible, will be at the precincts of parliament, as a fresh showdown is looming between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio la Umoja over the controversial Financial Bill 2023 that is coming up for the third reading, where MPs will vote clause by clause, even as the minority side accused Wetangula of tricking their members last week. So that is why you're seeing the two leaders on top of the page, as well as the National Assembly. Also top of the page, NHIF heist, Health CS sends officials home amid probe. Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nahumicha has suspended some National Hospital Insurance Fund branch managers a day after the nation exposed how rogue hospitals stole millions of shillings through suspect medical camps targeting elderly patients. Also top of the page, shock as matatu drivers fail NTSA refresher tests. Only 18% of those who have been assessed have passed the written and applied theory tests. Politics, Ruto Gachagua plot to fix Wamuchomba. Unhappy with the lawmakers' criticism of the agenda, the UDA chiefs appear to be propping up a rival in former Githunguru MP Kago Walidia, so as she can stand up against Gathoni Wamuchomba, who voted no for the bill. Also, top of the page on the Daily Nation, edible oil scandal. Media players call out Kuria for attack on Nation Media Group. Now, the Standard this morning, Azimio plans changes to Ruto to fix, or to Ruto's tax bill. The opposition has planned a two-pronged approach to the finance bill, where they are pushing for 8 amendments they hope will get support even from Kenya Kwanza legislators. If that fails, the coalition will move to court to block the implementation of the new tax measures. John Mbadi says the opposition is not opposing the bill 2023 just for the sake of it. We want amendments to be done to ensure that clauses that are coming up with taxation measures that will overburden Kenyans are amended, and that is why we want our colleagues from Kenya Kwanza to also support this. Top of the page as well, Moses Kuria, CS with a loose tongue attacks media. The trade CS is the poster les enfants terribles of Kenya Kwanza government, using uncouth language against people or institutions, pointing out government failures and scandals. Will the president bring him to order? A big question mark. As well as top of the page, Minister crack sweep at NHIF in fraud probe. Terror attack as pupils sang gospel hits, that is in Uganda. Kenya cuts imports duty on EU goods. And Shabana's 17 years fight to top league finally pays off as they were promoted to the Premier League. And then 16 new grave sites in Shakahola. The Star, big clash as MPs take final vote on tax law. Azimio's troop to line up a raft of amendments to cripple Ruto's revenue streams. Finance bill requires only a simple majority to move to the next stage. A simple majority means those who will vote yes, if there are more than those who will vote no, then the bill is passed. Top of the page as well, Treasury slashes top state officers 700 million allowances, including the former head of state, President Uhuru Kenyatta, whose budget has also been slashed by about 20 million. Tribunal bars Kanini Kega faction from Azimio divorce, says they are still part of Azimio, as well as Kindiki fights for Muranga MCA in a social media rant. 8 managers suspended, all NHIF staff to undergo lifestyle audit. So quite similar issues being headlined or highlighted by the papers. Moment of truth, Azimio plans changes to Ruto tax bill. Big clashes, members of parliament take final vote on tax law, because today it's that do or die moment, game of numbers as the Daily Nation puts it, at the National Assembly. Who will vote yes? Who will vote no? Your feedback is highly welcomed on that. We take a quick break. When we come back, our conversation comes up next. How do we bridge the gap between university education and job market? Year in, year out, thousands of graduates are released to the job market, but are they all consumed or taken up by different employers in the job market? That conversation coming up next. Keep it Morning Live.
From Nairobi, Kenya, this is EBN TV.
Faith for today is a show to look at what is going on in your life and what needs the intervention of God in your life.
Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the proof of things we do not see.
We are here for you. We are not here only for ourselves.
We are live every Tuesday and Thursday from 9 a.m. We boost your faith.
It is time to revive your faith.
Faith is for now, faith is for today. God has given us the breath of life.
Your Faith Today, live with Reverend Felix Kavoi.
Hello, praise the Lord. My name is Pastor Joseph Musajawaza of Unfailing Love Ministries. I'm inviting you every Wednesday to join us on our program, Victory Through the Word. In this program, we teach you God's Word. We teach you to find solutions and answers to the struggles of life through the Word of God. Everything you ever go through in life, every pain, every tear, every worry, and every questions that you may ever have in this life. You may not get answers out there, but in God's Word, there are answers and there is a solution. The Bible says that God has exalted His Word above His name. In His Word, there is hope. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but His Word will always remain abide. I encourage you, engage with us as we study together, as you ask your questions, and let your questions be answered as you are built and as you hear God's Word. Our church is located in Umoja, Inako, near Olobon Hotel, just off Sango Stage along Moi Drive, and the court is known as Church Court. Give us a visit and your life will not remain the same. God bless you. Let's meet every Wednesday from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. only on EBN television.
great love and joy. I especially welcome you to worship with us at Redeemed Gospel Church Buruburu. This is a true family church, a true spiritual home. Redeemed Gospel Church Buruburu is home to exuberant prayers, deep and true worship. A house of prayer that will leave you feeling refreshed. Our first service starts at 7:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. and our second service starts at 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. On Wednesdays, we have our midweek service from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and every Friday from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. we have our night of glory. This is the church you have been looking for. This is the place for your spiritual growth and maturity. See you this Sunday and karibu sana.
Watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Bwana Yesu asifiwe, watazamaji wa EBN. Kwa majina naitwa Pastor Julius Mutuko na nataka kukaribisha kwa kipindi ambacho tutakuwa tukisikiliza neno la Mungu kila siku ya Ijumaa na Jumamosi kuanzia saa 3:30 jioni hadi saa 4:30 kila siku kwa lisali moja, na hivyo tukiangazia true worship ama kuabudu halisi, ambapo tukiangalia Biblia kitabu cha Yohana 4:23-24, Yesu alipokuwa akiongea na mwanamke Msamaria alimwambia wakati unakuja ambapo watu watamwabudu Baba katika roho na kweli, kwa maana Baba ni roho ama Mungu ni roho, na yuwatafuta watu kama hao ili wakamwabudu. So jo nami tukaweze kujua kuabudu halisi ni nini kwa siku hizo. Karibuni nyote in Jesus name. Asanteni.
From Nairobi, Kenya, this is EBN TV.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Morning Live. We are glad that you're still here. We are just about to get into a very interesting conversation this morning. How do we bridge the gap between university education and the job market? Year in, year out, thousands of graduates, go through school, graduate from various tertiary institutions and colleges, talk about universities across the country, all public universities. But are they very much welcomed into the job market? Is there space for them in the job market from employers in different companies, organizations, institutions? Because year in, year out, we keep on talking about unemployment. And then, of course, that is one of the big issues that the government is still trying to work on. But aside from that, I'd love to also give you quick statistics. About only 40% of those who complete technical and vocational training secure employment. So where do the 60% go? Skills learned in our tertiary institutions do not meet the needs of potential employers. I'll take that again. Skills learned in tertiary institutions do not meet the needs of potential employers. So what do the employers want? Those are some of the questions that we'll try to answer for you this morning. Now in studio, I'm joined by my guest, Godfrey Gichuhi, who is an educationist as well as a coach and a consultant. Thank you so much, sir, for coming in this morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yes.
Right.
Now let's just get straight into the conversation on bridging the gap between, the university education and the job market. If you look at the statistics, just 40% of those who graduate make or secure employment, but 60%, are left to one, either look for an alternative of a job, or two, completely switch away from looking for a job and perhaps go into their own businesses, that is, employing themselves, for lack of a better word. So the question is, how did we get here, really? If you look at just the statistics, how did we get here?
I think it's clear that universities are churning out far too many graduates compared to the demand in the market. So there is an oversupply of graduates across the board, and so that's the reality we are living with, as a nation. Of course, you can look at it and say, okay, fine, oversupply is a bad idea. Maybe university should just admit just a few. But now the question is whether you want your daughter not to go to university, or son, so that you can keep the numbers low. So certainly that's not the case. So every parent wants to send their kids to school, to universities. Every young man, young woman coming off high school need to go, wants to go to university, and they should. Yes. They should actually, whether it's university, tertiary college. So in terms of the demand and the need to study, to learn and sign up for some profession, that is an ongoing. So now, of course, we know that the industry is not catching up with the numbers that are coming off the education system. And then the kind of numbers you're, for example, describing, only 30%, is it 40% who are able to be absorbed, and the other 60% is not very clear what happens. I think that's the reality. But again, it also depends on your measurements, and whether you are able to trace. I don't know whether I've seen any study, and I'm very keen because, as a researcher, when you study, there is what we call a kind of cross-sectional study. You look at a one-time, measurement. So you go to the field and you pick data within, say, like a short period, like a month, and then you publish that information. So, but then now the challenge is follow-up. Okay, so maybe the first 40%, the time when you check them out, they are unemployed. But if you check the same number, the exact same people, maybe 2 years later, you might actually find the other 40% are employed, and then maybe 3 years later, 80 or 90% of that cohort is employed. So I think what happens is that there are some programs, if you look at the cross-section of graduations and graduates that come out of university, there are some programs where absorption is quite straightforward. Teachers tend to go straight into job, to employment. If you're talking about technicians, maybe a lot of them get absorbed. So you kind of like have to break that down, so that then you can make very good sense out of it, and be able to say, if you want to adjust policy, for example, or you to deal with that problem, you have actually got to drill down to much finer details, so that then you're able to exactly find out where the problem is. But clearly, that is the reality. There is that reality that at whatever point you measure, you find that you will find this large group of students who have graduated and they are not in employment. But I think the system is much more complicated than that.
When you say complicated, what do you mean? Because you're talking about oversupply of graduates, meaning institutions are just let the students come in from high school. We'll take them. I mean, it's a source of revenue, so we'll take them, and they're taken through the 4 years or 3 years course or 2 years course, and then they're released out to the masses. Does the courses these students do play a part in just how much an employer will take up?
Yeah, it's true. If you study engineering, you have a different experience. If you study sociology, zoology, perhaps you might be unemployed for some number of years. I mean, employment in the normal, formal sense, but you might pick up some other skills somewhere else and decide to go in a completely different direction. I think, Cynthia, one of the things that I find, I think we really need to get to wrap our head around. I think it's a good thing for Kenyan young people to go through college, whether they get a job or not. So I think that's something we need to stop moaning about, because I think if you compare the level of graduates, the number of graduates, say like if you survey the population across the board, Kenya, how many people have a degree, and then you look at other countries. So you will find actually, by the way, for example, South Africa is way ahead of us in terms of percentage of people who have a degree. Now, you might say, okay, South Africans are offering them jobs, Kenyans are not offering them jobs, so that's not a good thing. But you find actually Kenya has made very huge progress in terms of the number of people who hold a degree, compare that to other countries in Africa. What that does is that even just the overall potential, the capacity, the human capacity available, when the jobs actually do appear, you have actually the pool. So I think if all these wonderful industrialists and people want to invest in this country landed here and there were no graduates to take up those positions, that would not be a good thing. So perhaps you have to look at it both sides, okay? The supply side, the demand side. The demand side, that is people setting up industry and looking for graduates. That actually would, you don't want there to be shortage on that side. But yes, you have shortage on the supply side. I mean, rather, too many graduates out there roaming around the streets of Nairobi looking for places, and of course the frustration. So I think we have to understand those numbers, that differential, between the numbers coming off and the numbers absorbed, and then of course you also have to factor in time. Okay, so this is advanced research, statistics. You have to put in time. Once you put in the factor of time, then the question will be, how long does someone graduating, say, with a BCom take to get absorbed in the industry? Is it 1 year? Is it 2 years? Is it 3 years?
But that may vary, yes, because there are those who might just get out of university and get a job immediately. There are those who stay for years. It varies, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe they have relatives who I mean, there are many ways of explaining it. But I think maybe I would like to see somebody produce numbers showing, for example, number of graduates, say like who have been out of employment for 5 years, and the professions they are coming from, so that then you see, maybe we should stop training projects, bachelors of science in project management, or this and this. So you kind of like, so you have to, I think there is lack of feedback, and I think what I think some of the problems we find with our policy, policy formulation, is that most of our policies are not really informed by solid data, solid research, and that becomes a problem, because if you present this data to a politician, a government minister, they will say, okay, fine, all right, so we are going to offer the 60% jobs like tomorrow. So they make that kind of statement. It's not going to happen. Because there are very many reasons why those 60% are absorbed at that point. And then if you check that same cohort, say 2 years later, perhaps most of them are employed. They are no longer out there. But there's another fresh, fresh group of people who are coming out there. So it's more complex, but it's But I would also like to say, on the other hand, from the university side of things, because I teach at the university, I'm actually currently teaching a class on entrepreneurship among the School of Business and Entrepreneurship at Jomo Kenyatta. That's my home school. That's where I'm a student, and that's where I also study and teach. So I'm currently teaching entrepreneurship, I also teach economics and business management. So what happens is that from the university side of things, it's true that there are programs that are very, very popular, but when you get to the market, perhaps things have shifted. You see, Cynthia, what you need to understand is that market forces shift quite rapidly. What was really like where there was kind of opportunities 5 years ago, perhaps those opportunities have faded off, because industries keep shifting. During COVID was a very good, it's very illustrative. Going through COVID and kind of when Kenya went through COVID and came out on the other side, so much has changed in the industry. Some opportunities have disappeared, new opportunities have emerged. So now when you say, like, for example, technology, things to social media, content creation, a lot of those opportunities have emerged. But obviously the universities haven't, changed any curriculum the last 3 years. They haven't churned out new courses, maybe a few. So it will take like another 5 years for the education system to catch up and begin to churn out graduates who could, if they had been available during COVID, would have taken up the opportunities were emerging.
Yeah. Do you think learners who come into the university are aware that market forces change quite often, that the courses they're going to pick now could be unpopular by the time they're finished with campus? Are they aware of that factor before they choose a course?
Actually, I'll tell you that university, those 20-year-olds, when they are signing up at the university, 18, 19-year-olds, they are largely clueless. In fact, actually they use just speculation. The information that they pick up here and there isn't a way. I think we had more solid career counseling at the entry level. If universities had kind of these massive career symposiums where people can actually, be provided with information, what is the market looking for, and actual valid information, the shift. So, for example, the retail sector in this country is growing very rapidly. Transport sector has always been growing. Property development sector is growing. Yeah, you understand? So there are some sectors that are really growing. I find it a bit difficult. Okay, I'm not, I don't have data on the sectors and how they are growing. Agribusiness is growing rapidly. So, but you see, sometimes you need to get those kind of information, and then now young graduates can make the right decision, because universities essentially offer a kind of a menu. It's like the way you go to a hotel and you have all these menus. You choose what you want to eat depending on your appetite, what you like, what you're familiar with, or maybe if you are explorative. There are students who go to universities and just look at the courses, or when they are choosing, they just say, oh, being a lawyer is a fun thing. So they just choose to be a lawyer, they have the grades, they sign up, then they come out and then try to see whether there are jobs. So sometimes you really can't quite help fully. The system is a bit blind. Okay, the system is a bit blind. And so I think I really sympathize with the 30,000 graduates coming off the system every year to a market which probably can only absorb 500,000, or maybe, in terms of formal, 500,000 or maybe 1 million. 500,000 in the formal and maybe another 2 million in the informal
sector.
I'd
love us to go back a bit to the oversupply, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that, universities still accept graduates, and you said, it's important for any student to go through college or university. So when you say there's this oversupply, should we cut on the supply of graduates? What should universities do? Should they continue with what they have been doing for a long time just taking these students who've been coming from high school and just take them through school like they've normally do because that's their role, or should they cut on that supply?
Now, well, of course, that's really a national policy issue, you know, whether the government, you know, maybe Ministry of Labor and the various stakeholders, maybe they should be considering, you know, the dynamics. I wouldn't say that universities need to cut at all. I don't think, not because I think that universities are doing a great job and that universities, you know, are these wonderful, benevolent, very, very well-run institutions like universities are suffering. They are right now very, very seriously challenged in terms of capital, resources, and all that. So universities are really struggling across the board. Somebody could argue that maybe we've created too many universities, and that's an argument, you know, on one side. But parents, you know, I kind of speak on both sides. I really don't want my son to miss university because they are closing down. Others will take them abroad. We'll take them to Tanzania or Uganda or something like that. So nobody is going to accept a scenario where their kids can't go to university. So that, Cynthia, I guarantee you, the forces are for you. Just have those seats. Have the seat, have the desk, teach my kids. So people want those seats in the university. So there is no question about it. And we can tell when universities offer courses that are not being taken. By the way, actually, during the Magoha's, CS Magoha's era, there was a very clear, I mean, he raised this issue of universities and challenged universities. If a course is not attracting the numbers, why do you want to keep the course? You understand? And he was telling universities, you need to change. I don't know whether they changed, but maybe some of them did. So I think I wouldn't advocate for cutting down the numbers. That I don't think whether it would serve anybody's interest. I would rather university graduates on the streets of Nairobi unemployed than streets of Nairobi full of people who are only high school graduates. You know, hustling. Those ones are worse.
Better the unemployed.
You know, the guys after they go to university, I think they get a little bit of common sense. I mean, while we all think that they just come out clueless. No, I think they get something. The 4 years kind of like prepare these guys for life in very many ways. So I think, and university graduates, and this is a general statement, you know, it needs to be investigated. I think someone who's gone through university and have graduated, they have a way better chance in life. They are better exposed to ideas, you know, various fields. And so perhaps they are much easier to mold and shape and reorient in different ways. For example, let me give you an example. Right now I'm teaching entrepreneurship to a class, to students who are doing pure maths. These guys are doing pure mathematics. I tell you, my friend, you look at the kind of stuff they are studying. I studied, you know, I mean, complex ideas. And you know, and I'm teaching them entrepreneurship, and it's really just one unit, you know, and the rest of it is the theoretical, mathematical issues. And then I'm puzzling in my head, how will these guys play out in the market? And some of the things I'm encouraging these young guys to do is, look, you know, you're coming out with very, very, very sharpened brain. You really can think. You can process complex ideas. So you've been drilled for 4 years to really be able to think. And I remember I was telling one of my students that, you know, when you come out, you must use your brain because you have exercised it for 4 years. You know, handling very, very, very complex ideas. And synthesizing very abstract numbers and all that. Mathematics can be very abstract in a lot of ways. But then you find that actually mathematicians make very, very good scientists. Mathematicians make very good entrepreneurs. In fact, one time Kenya Airways CEO was a graduate in physics. You understand? And chemistry. They are Jack, what do you call him? Former CEO of General Motors, Jack Welch, I read his autobiography. He was actually an industrial chemist. He studied industrial chemistry, PhD level. He went on to become one of the, world's greatest CEO.
Yes.
You understand? So I think there is a sense in which that we are better off with graduates, even if they have to work in supermarkets stacking up stuff. Maybe that's the other thing we should be telling our viewers. So if you get a job to stack up the things in the supermarket, take it. You can't be on the street because you graduated the pure maths degree and you're mourning. I think you would rather just sign up with a local supermarket, work as a clerk, or stack up stuff, work in the warehouse. Just do something. Yes. It's a matter of time before you find your footing.
Yeah. Now, there's a graduate who must be watching you and just wondering, does it make sense what you've said? It's better to have unemployed graduates on the streets than to have, unemployed high school, certificate holders on the streets.
Yes.
Because a lot of young people at this particular era believe that, if my parent gives me money to start my own business, the money that he or she would have taken me to school with, I can do just fine. And I was looking at an example of someone who's gone through, medicine school, 6 years through medical school, the kind of fees they paid, still unemployed. And then someone else says, for me, I'd rather my parent gives me that money, which would amount to about 600,000 Kenyan shillings
per year. Per year.
And let me get my own business and start. Doesn't that sound like the easier option?
No. In the short term, it sounds like a brilliant idea in the short term. But in the long term, would you rather be a struggling hustler at the age of 60 or an expert medical surgeon at the age of 60? You will choose the medical surgeon at the age of 60. You just operate one person and you pay all your bills. You understand? And even they refuse to take up some of the...
Make it sound easy.
No. I mean, I know these people,
Make it sound easy, just operate one person,
No. I mean, if even a CS procedure, you pay about 50K. NHIF actually pays hospitals for a CS procedure 50K. So if you give the doctor 20K, he does a couple of them in a day, he's just fine. He will fuel his car, he probably already has a home, he's probably just fine. And they can do that in their 80s. So you see, you have to look at the long term, and I think that's the message we're not giving young people. You have to look at the long term. Going to university is investing in your life. It's not barter trade. It's not school fees or money. I would rather have the school fees in one pot and just consume it. Look, after all, this is school fees. What is it for if I'm going to be out unemployed for 6 years? I would rather just grab the school fees and go to Gikomba and open a Mutumba, outfit. No. I mean, that's a useless idea because you will fail. I teach entrepreneurs. I know how hard it is. Do you know the failure rate, for example, on the entrepreneur front is 80% of small businesses fail in 5 years. Every new business that starts 5 years later, only 20% are surviving. So the failure rate is very high. So you don't want to take your medical degree money from your parents and start off some venture. You're a 20-year-old young man or woman, you're largely clueless, in many ways. You don't know even how to negotiate banks and loans with banks. Where are you going to get those ideas? You understand? You go to medical school, or you go and study that BCom or that BSc in education. Go study to be chemistry. Go study mathematics. When you're 25, we can have this conversation. You understand? Even age is an issue because you're talking about young guys at the age of... The average Kenyan graduate is actually around 23, 24 years. That guy who is looking for a job. So should really Kenyans be mourning for 24-year-old guys who are not employed? Is that a crisis? That's not a crisis. 10 years from that time, if you take that exact person, he will be employed.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, we've spoken about, why they should go to university, because they're investing for themselves. But now, how do they prepare themselves post-university? Because in school, we'll just be told, you know, go through your classes, get your papers, but post-school, the reality now hits hard, because if you look at some of the research that has been conducted, it is said in the market, there's a mismatch between skills and labor market, and it's an impediment for young people to get jobs. It seems they went to school to get skills for a particular job, but the moment they graduate and get to the job market, they do not have the skills. How so?
That is the real issue. The issue is the mismatch between what people study at the university and what the job market is looking for. That's there. That's a big problem, the mismatch. And so clearly, universities are also aware that they are churning out graduates in certain disciplines that actually not going anywhere, largely, because some of those programs, they were very, very good when they started off, but then over time, there is oversupply. For example, this is one of the most interesting. You know, accounting, BCom accounts, you know, accounting CPAs. You know, there is a very huge supply of CPAs and accounting. And you know, when I was graduating, accounting was in the vogue. It was the real deal. If you really didn't, in fact, some of us, I graduated with engineering, but I wanted to do accounts. Some of my friends actually went ahead and did account. Guys would graduate with all kinds of programs, especially science-based, and go and do accounts. Then they would get very good jobs in the market. So, but then that has changed. You understand? So there is oversupply in certain programs, although we still need accounts. So there is a residual demand for accountants across the board. So good quality accountants will find jobs, that's for sure. But young clueless graduates coming off, you know, employers will pay them a powder penny, just pay them little money, and so they get very frustrated. There are other areas where there is, you know, technical programs don't have a lot of problems. I think this is a social science, sociology, and some of the social science programs, and that's why some of the people come out here. And then, so Cynthia, I think where now universities can collaborate is where they collaborate with industry. For example, the civil society, NGO world. I think it would be very good if there was a link between some of the programming, you know, M&E, project management, programming management, things like those. It would be very helpful if universities can link up and create collaborations between those areas where there is a huge numbers. Retail sector, for example, I would love to see a collaboration between retail sector and universities, where, say, guys coming out of universities can be signed up by some of these big retailers, and there is a way that they are working together, train their managers, train their, you know, IT people, stuff like that. So, yes, Cynthia, you're right, there is a gap. Guys graduate, and when they arrive at their desk, you know, when they get a job,
they don't know what to do.
No, they have to be trained. So, and of course, you also must accept there is something we call on-job training. I am an employer at the same time, you know, kind of I play many cards at the same time. I'm on the training side of things. I'm on the employer side of things. So I know that, for example, in the media industry like this, you know, guys coming off Kenya Mass. They can handle cameras, they have a little bit of clue, but it takes them about 6 months to really to get a hang of things in a studio scenario, even though they're trained. So you can't blame these young graduates. You have to take them as potential. They have potential energy, but that needs to be molded. And so that, I think the problem is there isn't somebody taking responsibility for bridging the gap. It's not a university, it's not an employer.
So who should? Because, you know, it's very coincidental that you've actually mentioned my school. I'm an alumni of Kenya Mass, and I know that this is an institution that is more practical than theoretic. And perhaps that could be the difference between the tertiary, the technical training institutions and the universities.
Yes.
Because if you pick one from a university and the other one from a college, a tertiary institution, and put them on the desk, one will be more theoretical than the other one who's more practical.
Yes.
So you say, you know, somebody should take responsibility. Who should it be? Who should it be? Because this is a student who is coming, needs help from the university itself and from the government to some extent. So who should take responsibility? Are these programs that should be, you know, incorporated within the courses they're studying? Should we have, you know, post the university education, even if it's a 1 or 2 months training of what is happening in the market? What should happen?
I have seen universities taking very serious, doing very serious programming, especially industrial attachment. For example, where I work, you know, the organization I run, I had some graduates from KU, Kenyatta University.
Yes.
And when the professor came to, assess the student, I realized he had some very elaborate programming. So Kenyatta University has a very elaborate industrial attachment program. They have a booklet, a huge booklet. You record everything you're learning every day, and there's a page for every day. So throughout the 8 or exactly. So, and I was very, very impressed. And so that the university itself has a very elaborate system of ensuring that when a graduate goes for industrial attachment, they actually are able to record. There is a way they are following through to ensure that that person is actually engaged in actual learning. But I think that's the extent to which the university can go. I don't think whether they have resources, to go beyond that. They might not be able to pay for you to train them another further, 6 months. And university actually don't pay the employer for hosting those students. So I think there is a gap there, and I think if we were to speak to that gap in terms of public policy,
yes,
that's where the issue is. What you discovered, Cynthia, the government during the last regime had a program. It came up with a program for absorbing graduates into industry and paying them a certain stampede, paying actually the industry, or rather the employers, for hosting those graduates while they are doing the industrial program. The system didn't go very far. I'm not too sure whether it's still really working. Government tends to run out of money quite quickly.
Yes.
For some reason. So that's a conversation for another day. Yeah, but there was a very huge attempt at the government actually intervening and saying, okay, fine, if employers are fine, we can absorb some of the cost for employers for hosting these students, because everybody can see the gap. So university students come out, they lack skills, employers don't have the resources, or they are profit-seeking organizations, obviously, so they have no resources to give away. So the government was saying, okay, fine, we'll pay you to keep these students and learners this amount of money. I think it was 6,000. I don't know how far that program went, but it was an attempt. So attempts have been done to bridge the gap, but...
Yeah, and what you're mentioning sounds like a short-term plan, because for how long will they be able to sustain those kind of programs where, the government is working with the employer to ensure that these learners or these fresh graduates are able to do something that matches hand in hand with what they went through. So I would love you to really speak on these policies that we need, and long-term policies, because it sounds like short-term policies just do not work for Kenya. What are some of these long-term policies that we need to put up in place? You say universities, they'll do the best that they can, but also they lack the resources. So majorly it's with the part of the government, isn't it?
Let's say that the government is committed to invest resources in educating its people. That commitment is there. There are huge resources. In fact, the Ministry of Education absorbs the largest portion of national budget. There's no question about it. Now, how far you can stretch that budget, to various programs, various holes that it's got to go into. I think there is a funding gap in that particular small, gap where you're saying how can you put in resources to kind of transition the graduates into the employment and kind of give them the skills. Remember, in fact, there is a limit to how much government can help. I am not in favor of over intervention. Government overreach doesn't quite help. I wish that the government would just give this money, put their money in the hands of the students, let them eat it or whatever, or maybe just put the money in a pool where once you get the job, you kind of like log in and all that and draw the money or something like that. If it could be automated in such a way that maybe the employer, actually, if the system was automated such that as soon as the employer has taken the person through this system, can log in and get paid. Maybe they could even anchor it to say like you can say when you're paying your tax, filing your tax, you can kind of knock off those numbers. We train this number of students, somebody can verify and all that. So we are paying less this amount, something like that. Like the way VAT, you balance out the VAT. That could help. Because putting money in the hands of people, it just doesn't work often. So I think there's a challenge of policy and how to get the thing implemented, and implementation is very complex. By the way, that's my research area. That's what strategy implementation is the big elephant in the house. So good ideas, good policy.
But just how do we put them?
Yes, because most policies are not thought through. There is a lot of Kenyans, Cynthia, Kenyans they are knee-jerk reactors, So like now there's a big debate, don't pass the finance bill, pass the bill. So right now we are just frantic, pass the bill for goodness sake, you understand? So our problem right now is passing the bill, not what the bill is going to do, but just pass it. Pass it. Let's talk later. So we seem to have our priorities wrong. We are fighting the wrong battles. I don't know whether we should be fighting about whether to pass the bill or not. That's where not we should put in all our energies. We should be asking ourselves, what exactly is the problem here? Are we not even happy to allow the government to collect taxes or something? And should we shut down the country? We can't. So I think most things left to politicians go wrong. That's a very serious statement. It's a charge against the political class. Yes.
Now, you said strategy implementation.
Yes.
Because in 2015, under the previous administration, they came up with a program called Ajira Digital Skills, which was started to secure online jobs for over 1 million youth. So, as time goes by, as market forces shift, as times are changing, it seems everything now wants to fall the online way. So these online skills that we keep on talking about, and you hear graduates say, you must know how to work online, you must know how to do this online. Is that one of the policies that needs to also be integrated in schools, or if not schools?
Cynthia, what happens? A lot of these policies they come off PowerPoint. That's the problem. Are you aware that Kazi kwa Vijana came out of some PowerPoint presented by the then Prime Minister? It was just a PowerPoint policy out of PowerPoint.
And that's the biggest mistake.
So you go to a conference, somebody does PowerPoint and says, there are a lot of internet jobs, these are the numbers and things like that. And then bang, from there, yes, we're going to implement that. We're going to implement it like today. We are putting this kind of money. I have given permission, etc., etc. And then after that, guys go away. When the cameras are off, nothing happens. So Cynthia, unfortunately, a lot of our energies get wasted. A lot of our policies are really not properly anchored. And by the way, the things that get really properly implemented, the policies where, when people really focus, Kenya has done an amazing things, on certain, fronts. where people really focus their attention. But there is a lot of, and especially youth unemployment is such a sensitive idea or issue that every politician wants to leverage it. So there are a lot of solutions being thrown at a problem which a lot of people don't understand.
Because every politician will say, I'll work on youth unemployment. These are the things I need to do. Recently we've had, the president said, we will be constructing this number of houses, 200,000 affordable houses. This is employment to you people. So it seems we are taking advantage of the fact that we have so many unemployed youths and we're willing to churn out anything at them. Do they need anything? Do they need a strategy?
Not even that. So let's even take that statement. Let's assume that is very well meant. So employment in the construction sector, that's not going to absorb teachers.
True.
Yeah. So that's the fact. So yes, the statement is well intended. Obviously, the construction will absorb some people for employment. And you know who gets absorbed? By the way, it's actually ex-high school graduates who are fundis. My good friend fundis. I have so much respect for the guys we call fundi. The guy who does the stonework, the masonry, the technician, the electrician, the plumber. I have so much respect for those people. Those are the people who build this nation. Yes.
Now, I'd love us to also focus a bit on something else. There's this thing employers say, we want people with experience.
Right.
I mean, this is a graduate, has left school in 2019, let's say. COVID came in, didn't get a place for employment. 2021, the country is still trying to get back on its feet. So as companies are doing, they still can't get a place, but there's a job advertisement, and then they say we need people with 5 years experience. How much does this hinder, this fresh graduate? Because where are they to get this experience from?
It's a very old problem. Cynthia. That problem, kind of nobody really has a very serious solution to it. Again, and that's where now we have to come back to this bridging the gap between university, the academy, and the industry. If there was serious engagement between these two platforms, two worlds, the world of academia and the industry, perhaps we may be able to help this graduate, who is being asked for, even if it's 1 year experience. Maybe we can even take your profession, the media. When you came out and you signed up for your first employer, the employer, of course, was very skeptical. They weren't just going to take your word that I can handle a camera, I can handle this and this and the other, I can video edit and stuff. They were not going to take your word. They needed to see. Fortunately, in the media industry, for example, you can actually you can showcase your skills. You can actually produce maybe a small, video output and then demonstrate. So, but there are some skills you cannot demonstrate outside the industry. If you're an accountant, you can't just bring books and say, oh, look at the books I've audited, or I have done these accounts for so and so. You can't do that. Whose books are they? So we have to trust an accountant to just give them a desk, give them a few entry-level, assignments, and let them learn through the job. So I think for certain professions, we need to really do intervention. Otherwise, you're going to have this 2019 graduate still sitting at home and watching television and waiting for, God knows who, because obviously, if you're an accountant, they are looking for 2 years experience. You definitely don't have the 2 years experience, and unless you sit behind somebody's desk, you're not going to earn those experience. Maybe perhaps we should tell them to volunteer in a church, do the church accounts. And so perhaps
now about the volunteering part.
Yes.
Does this also play a role in just the employer that will take this graduate in? Does the voluntary work play a part? Because just a minute. Graduates are so obsessed with finances, they're not willing to do the voluntary work.
That's a big mistake. And I would say that yesterday I was chatting with a graduate who has volunteered with the Red Cross. Okay. I didn't ask them what okay, they told me, I think what they have studied, they studied international relations. So they are volunteering for the Red Cross. Okay, so they were in Madare, you go and start doing some of these things. Now, if you volunteer for 6 months in the Red Cross, even if you are a media professional or an accountant, and then you come to me as an employer, I am probably more willing to give you a chance than somebody who is sitting in their house and just they are wasting away. You understand?
Yeah.
So I think if the message to the graduates, those guys who are stuck there, they're stuck in that paradigm called the employer is looking for 2 years experience, where do you expect me to find the 2 years experience? My message to them is go and get doing something. Frontier, go offer your skills wherever, even if it's again stacking stuff in the supermarket, with your engineering degree. Somebody's going to notice that, and make sure you record that in your CV. I do career counseling, and those are the things you share. You have to be very practical if you're looking for a job, because employers are very practical people. If I'm looking to hire HR assistant, for example, some of the jobs in HR are quite straightforward, mundane. Filing, writing letters, keeping records, processing leave schedules and stuff like that. So they are not very, very complex. Any graduate can do them. The entry-level stuff. Before you get to strategy, where you're thinking about, or maybe crafting very advanced JDs or recruiting or interviewing. So HR. So it's not very hard, and the HR has options for diplomas. So if you graduate with a bachelor's in HR, you can go and do a diploma, postgraduate diploma in HR, and that really gives you practical skills. Same thing, I would say, people who want to go into project management, they are professionals. Most industries have professional, kind of stage where you go and sign up to this professional, you do some kind of entry exam. That does help bridge the gap.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, there's something interesting that I've just, I've picked from what you've said. You have a graduate who has gone through the degree course for 4 years.
Yes.
Completed, didn't get placed for employment or to volunteer or to do internship, went ahead to do the master's, did the master's, went ahead to do the PhD. So this is a doctor, but basically has not really been able to work in the industry at all. And then you have a graduate who perhaps has done the certificate course, has done the diploma course, has decided to do another diploma course of a different course. What is the chances that a company or an employer would rather pick the diploma
than the PhD holder?
The diploma graduate rather than the PhD graduate who has no experience in the industry, has just been in and out of school.
Usually those are very rare cases. It's very rare to find somebody who goes from bachelor's to master's to PhD and they are completely out of touch with the industry. In fact, it's not even possible to graduate with a PhD without touching the industry, because you will come to industry, you will research, you will study, maybe you will do a very complex case study, you will study maybe several organizations, depending on the area of specialization. You will be so employable, the diploma guy will just be shy of. So I can guarantee you, PhD, there's no, especially in social science, even if you did PhD in advanced zoology, by the time you finish your papers, you have had to touch base with the reality of the ground, because that's what PhD is. You go to the ground and study. So by the time by the master's level, you already are very, very familiar with the industry, your area of specialization, you're already connected to it is actually impractical. The universities are not like, I think we need to demystify that. Universities are not like ivory towers that do not completely interact with the industry. I think that's a myth. It's not reality. Universities are constantly interacting with the industry.
To improve on their courses.
And university in of themselves, universities are people. Graduates in university, faculties, specialists, researchers are always interacting with industry. Take, for example, Jomo Kenyatta University, where I'm a student there. Guys in agriculture, all those sciences, biological sciences, are constantly researching actual field research. You know, if you're researching, for example, maize crops and all that, and some biological systems, you actually go to the field and actually establish a real field experiment. So by the time they graduate, these guys actually have something to offer the world, and whether they get employed or not, you know, in the traditional sense, there's no way they're going to be clueless. So
as we wrap this conversation up, because our time is almost up, I'd love to just take you through the cost of university education now.
Bring it on.
What has been proposed in TVET courses. And this is a newspaper from May 18th that, you know, says students who sat KCSE last year get not to choose preferred university and college courses whose fee details for the first time are displayed in the placement agency's website in the new higher education funding formula. And the courses and the university courses where the universities are, the amount has been displayed. It sounds as if university education is getting expensive day by day. So if we are talking about bridging the gap between, you know, university education and job market, what if these learners don't get to university at all due to the cost of courses?
I will tell you, Cynthia, that the problem of funding an university and making universities viable, it's a problem that everybody has avoided solving. It's very complex. In fact, I'm glad that this went through and there was no student protest on the streets of Nairobi. That was a very clever move. The government has managed. Do you know, students, the current university student fee for a course per semester is around 17,000. That number was established in the 1980s. Right? So how much was bread in 1980? So if university semester was costing 17,500 in 1980 and is costing in 2023 the same amount, and bread has changed like 10 times. So what is the problem? There is a disconnect. So we have to put back reality into the system. Having said that, in fact, the idea was the universities were actually the ones which were caught between the rock and a very hard place. They are told you can only collect 17,500 from the students, and then we're going to give you the other balance, which again has not changed. So universities say pay another 17 to the university. The government pays another 17. So total amount given to universities around, say, 40K per term, per student, or per year, actually, or something like that. So universities could not deliver those courses at those numbers, and that's how universities have suffered. So unless we want to shut down our education system, it's unsustainable. So now on the issue of cost of the university, so what the government has said, okay, fine, let's not hide our head in the sand. Let's agree that a bachelor's of commerce costs X amount of money to deliver reasonably. Practically, you're paid the lecturers, you're paid the system, you're paid everybody, and you're actually running. You are paid the guy who cleans the classroom. You understand? This is a guy who cleans the classroom, actually, where students sit. Is some young woman, employed, and somebody's mother. You understand? Employing. So those people need to be paid. So what the university is saying, or what this whole move was, this is the actual cost of offering these bachelors. So universities were told, okay, so that's the fee. So what is going to happen is when you sign up for that as a student, then you apply for 50%. The government is offering 50%, I think some of them 40% and all that. So that then the university knows what we are expecting from the government is the 60%, and it is this amount. So there is no argument. So if the government doesn't pay us the fee, we can stop training the students. You understand? So, but the students are not going to be more expensive for the students as such. So, if say like now, it's 70K per semester for a BCom. Let's keep using the BCom or BBA. So the university, it's reasonably costing it 70K per semester, which is what private universities charge. So the government can pay 50%, that's 35, then the parent can pay the balance. And even the balance, you can go to Helban and apply for a loan. So you can actually go for the course, actually for free quote unquote, of course. But everybody in the system knows where the balances are coming from. So if it is help which is paying us the balance, the university writes to help and says, hey, you owe us this amount. If it's the government, you owe us this capitation. So that then after you give us that money and we train your students, then we can pay our workers, we can pay the lecturers and all that. Cynthia, is a very, very, very serious problem. Universities were on the verge of collapse.
But if you look at some of these amounts, isn't it just a bit too much? Because look at Bachelor of Arts in Medicine from your university, JKUAT,
yes.
Maseno and Moi University that will offer, that will, you know, the price or the cost of the course stands at 612,000 Kenyan shillings. Look at Civil Engineering, Multimedia University, 396,000. Bachelor in Science in Computer Science from Multimedia, 360,000 Kenyan shillings. This amount...
Actually, we've just, one of my granddaughters, you know, not exactly my direct granddaughter, you know, daughter of my niece, graduated with medicine, and the parents struggled to pay privately. You know, they were paying something like 150K per semester, or thereabout. It's very expensive to train a doctor in Kenya. That is the truth. So what was happening is that before this policy was put in place, and this, by the way, is one of the most bold moves, I would say, that the current administration has pulled off. The previous government, almost the three past previous governments were unable to do this. They couldn't do it. The political cost was too high, because all you needed is rub the students the wrong way, they go to the streets, throw stones, and you have to keep, they have to keep paying 17, what they were paying in 1980. So having said that, there are a lot of people who even didn't know that actually those were the numbers. So at least everybody, politicians, university administrators, everybody involved in the system knows those are the fees. Of course, Cynthia, the other challenge that comes in every time you have this sort of conversation is, how much does it cost to train a doctor in South Africa? How much does it cost in UK? In the US, it's very expensive. And even there, you need scholarship. Actually, even the Americans themselves, to earn a bachelor's in medicine, they need funding by their own state, then by their own government. And what happens? The universities who are providing the training, they say, you owe us this amount, you give us the money, we'll train your graduates, and everybody's happy. So I think we probably have a much better system now. Universities are probably going to thrive. I think we're going to see a much more robust, sustainable educational system. I think I speak that because I have actually watched the drama play out for the last 30 years. So I know there are people, of course, who are on the other side. You know, it's too expensive. Our students, our poor Lokichogio kids, you know, and then from say Mandera will never afford these school fees. Kakuma, Turkana, wherever, Pokot, they will never afford. That's not the point. If there is a kid graduating from high school somewhere in say one of those marginal counties, you know, Malindi or whatever, Lamu, and they want to do medicine, they can't do medicine in this country, because they will apply. Once the university admits them, because they meet the qualification, then they apply for funding, and most likely they get most of the fees, and then they can go and do that. Of course, you're not going to train like you know, 1 million medical students, so there is a limited number in terms of capacity, and even capacity, both the students themselves and the universities themselves. So again, training medicine is expensive.
So as we wrap up this conversation, I'd love your input as we wrap it up on just the CBC curriculum, because this is a curriculum that centers more on the skills compared to 844 system, which, you know, was more academic part, pass your examinations, get these good grades, then, you know, work your way up front there. So how much does CBC play a role in bridging the gap between university and the job market, because it is more centered on skills. A class for graduates, or rather a grade 4 students now can do so many things practically, and they're just grade 4. So what happens when they get to Form 6? Will they be more skilled than they are now?
I think CBC is a very idealistic system. It's still not as in touch with the reality as it's claimed to be, for various reasons. And I have my own reservation. I know there was a very, very intense debate about CBC, merits and demerits and all that. But when you talk about competence, a competence-oriented way of thinking, that is actually laudable. Because what you are saying is, and you know, we're talking about, you see, remember, we're not talking about university graduates, we're talking about 6-year-olds in grade 1 or 2. I mean, grade 1, actually, they're supposed to be in grade 1. And I don't know how much you know how to teach young kids. So I think CBC is a methodology if you want me to use complicated terms, it's a pedagogical methodology. I mean, if you keep it simple. If you want complex ideas, it's a teaching methodology. So it's an approach. So there's too much fuss about too little, because the good old teacher knows how to get kids to understand to count 1 up to 10 with or without CBC. You understand?
Yes.
I think it's because now you are saying, oh yeah, so maybe we should bring some practical skills, like let them know how to knit, let them know how to write, draw and all that. So we are making too much fuss about something that is a very, very small marginal shift in approach. Really. It is actually marginal. CBC is not a groundbreaking idea as such. Most of what was always being done is going to remain. I think what is more, again, all countries are fine-tuning the education system, and every country is complaining about the education system. Americans are complaining, Germans are complaining, the Japanese are not happy, everybody is not happy. I don't know why, for goodness sake. Maybe people should just take their kids back to the house and teach them. Otherwise, as soon as you take your kids to a public school, you kind of get very fussy about what they are being taught, how they are being taught. The best teacher is the mother. So that's number one. So an education system should approach mother's way of teaching as possible. I think that's what CBC is trying to say.
Yes.
CBC, a mother teaches the kid how to eat, and how to poo and all that. So I think CBC is something like advanced. I don't know whether CBC obviously will help kids also, kind of widen their way of thinking. So perhaps it will produce that kind of thing. I think the CBC might be able to help in, those broad set of skills that Alana should learn. But it's not panacea for creating like these genius entrepreneurs and all that. We still have to do the hard work.
Yeah, and we'll just have to wait and see, because at the moment, they're just still, grade 7.
844 was supposed to be, the game changer. You guys came off the 844.
Yes,
so,
I did.
Yeah. So,
what did you come off?
No, the older one. I'm an old man.
All right, so Godfrey, I'd love us to completely wrap this conversation, so you can get the final word, and perhaps, what should graduates, should they have an open mind as they get to university and just know, let's go study first, then we can think about the job market later. What should be the end game here as we wind it up?
Okay, I think I have the benefit of hindsight, because I've been a graduate. I graduated, came out looking for a job. Maybe I was lucky, those days. I graduated many years ago. But I have children also who have graduated, and they are struggling, and they have had their own drama and all that. I think for the graduate out there, I would like to, my advice for them is that focus on building real skills. Of course, you need the groundwork. You need to have the theory in place. You need to understand, if it is accounting, you need to understand the principles properly. Whatever area you go into, if it's if it's teaching, you need to really understand. If you're studying pure science, get the content absorb their actual skills. Then when you come out there out here in the market, you got to work really hard. You got to prove yourself to be practical, result-oriented, and there are other softer skills that you can acquire. Learning never comes to an end. So if there's a graduate sitting in the house mourning, I think they should just wake up and go to go out there and learn. Maybe even just drive a matatu and learn what it takes to interact with the ordinary people.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much, Godfrey Gituhi, an educationist and a coach and a consultant as well. Thank you for coming in and weighing in. There's so many things I've been able to pick, and I feel like we could go on to talk about them, but we'll just keep it at that and leave it at that. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in this morning. You've been watching Morning Live, the conversation on how do we bridge the university education and job market gap. We seem to be having a lot of graduates, leaving university but not really getting absorbed in the job market. We also have an issue of skills. Are they skilled enough for the employer to take them, or do we just have theoretical students or graduates out there? So that has been the conversation this morning. In case you've missed it, you can rewatch it on our YouTube channel as well as on our Facebook page. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Have a fantastic morning.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Faith for today is a show to look at what is going on